I would like to give a direct and honest thank you to Sony and the people over at PlayStation for making the market of gaming consoles less and less appealing each year. Sure, we had a good run, but I think after the PS4, most people started to realize, hey, wait a minute, I could buy a gaming PC for only a couple $100s more and have access to the internet and be able to play online with friends without having to pay another $100 plus more dollars to do so. Overall, I feel physical media has started to fade away as well with each console release, especially when people still consider older consoles with worse graphics better than the RTX and highly capable units like the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Now, there is a time and place for gaming consoles, but that usually only takes place when using a controller fits the game you play better or when an exclusive title comes out on a specific console. Sometimes gaming consoles that have high-end specs can actually cost less than PCs that have the same or even slightly less impressive specs, which to some people makes them more affordable. So when I make you look at these two images, answer this. What's different about them, and which one looks like it costs $200 more than the other? If you want to pause the video, you can do that, or I'll give you 5 seconds to come up with an answer. And oh, by the way, time's up. Did you say the one on the right looks more graphically impressive because the windows are more clear and the already tiny text is slightly easier to read? I'm sure that in 5 seconds, or without previous knowledge of what you were looking for, this would have been probably really hard to spot the difference of. And that's the point I am getting at with this video. Because if PlayStation thinks this is a $200 upgrade of a console that already costs $500, but this time doesn't include a stand or disk drive, if the PS5 Pro is a financial success, I can guarantee you that physical media will be dead and buried in the next few years, also including the death of gaming consoles as a whole, and a major change that could completely leave the gaming community in shambles, all because of one $200 upgrade. Now, although every word that just came out of my mouth sounds like an overreaction and it makes me sound really cheap, I would like to inform you that I am serious and would like to share you why I am and how the PS5 Pro could ruin the future of gaming. When comparing the original PS4 to the PS5, there are obvious and big reasons why the PS5 is a huge graphically advanced upgrade able to run some of the most demanding games of the past decade. I would just like to remind people that the PS5 Pro is not the PS6, which means no one, including me, should be expecting the PS5 Pro to be a next-gen console. But rightfully so, we were expecting it to be Pro. And when looking at the regular compared to this, there is not enough Pro to make any extra blades of grass you can find in The Last of Us worth $200 extra. This gets me into my first topic about gaming consoles as a whole. Now, I am not saying the death of them is coming as soon as you think, but in the hypothetical world where the PS5 Pro is a success, Xbox, I would assume, would bump up their prices on their next console, meaning that if the Xbox Series X already costs $500, in the future for the next Xbox generation, I think they'd be able to get away with increasing the price of the console without making the console as much of an upgrade, and this goes hand in hand with PlayStation 2. If PlayStation is able to get away with barely upgrading a Pro version of the already capable PS5 and then bumping up the first price of that, then they can definitely get away with adding barely any impressive graphical changes to the PS6 and selling that at a high price. If it turns out all they need to do is slap a Pro or increase the number after the PS, then the rise of the prices within the consoles and lack of actual upgrade between them could lead to more and more people being turned away from them, as they become way too expensive for an average person to be able to buy. If a big company doesn't have to put in any effort to make a lot of money, believe it or not, they won't put in any effort and just push something out and try to squeeze as much money out of the consumer as they possibly can. This leads me right into concerns this would cause to the gaming community. If prices went up for consoles, I think the next thing to happen is the increase of game prices, and they are already way too high. Take for example Star Wars Outlaws that has its big Ultimate Edition costing $130 and the regular edition being $70. When console prices go up, game prices don't want to be left out and will jack their prices up too. The affordability of games is already dwindling when games have been going from $60 to $70 and so on. I would assume if they were to increase more and more drastically in a short amount of time, it could lead to a video game market crash where any high-priced games start flopping, leading to studios desperately needing more money to even stay in business. When, for example, no one buys the base game of Insomniac's Spider-Man 3 for $120. I do want to admit this is all speculation on a possibility, but let's say 3 games you are hyped for are coming out on the same day, and they all cost $100. Would you buy all of them for $300 in total? $60 or even $70 at time doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but on average per month you buy 5 games that all cost $100 because the inflation of games and consoles go up. Is that something you would really do? All in all, the hypothetical that the PS5 Pro succeeds and inflation goes up for consoles and video games because they realize people will buy products that are barely different from the one they got a year ago, this isn't just a topic for consoles, but for the entirety of gaming on any platform you play on, since all prices will be affected cross-platform. Finally, I would like to mention the fact that you have to buy a stand and disk drive for the PlayStation 5 Pro separately. The stand is just strange why it isn't in the box already, because of how overpriced the PS5 Pro is and how it's a small part that definitely makes a difference on keeping the console safe. The disk drive is a whole other story. The fact they're selling this thing at $700 just for the console and one controller is already enough to make people go over their budgets for holiday gifts, birthday gifts, and own personal purchases. So why would anyone spend an extra $80 for a disk drive that's almost $800 you just spent in total? And if this is your first PlayStation console, you've already paid for a console, one controller, a disk drive, and you still have no games, no online service purchases for multiplayer use, and now you have the option to buy a PS5 stand for another $30 if you want. In total, the amount of money you would have to spend in order to get this machine to reach its true potential is in the $1,000 ranges, and at that point, you can buy a gaming PC that lets you access the internet freely without monthly or annual costs, and you can play more games that are exclusive to PC, and a lot of them are free. The one thing about the whole PS5 Pro dilemma is that physical media just won't be worth it anymore if you have to spend an extra $80 to actually use any discs. Physical media has already been on the decline, and I believe that if everything goes how I think it will, if it succeeds, then why would there be any use for having DVDs when you can just get everything online? And why would companies keep making discs anyways? Now, this entire video has sounded wild, and I understand if you think this is a little over the top, but in the world where we live in, where $1,000 is a big commitment to people, companies will realize that they'll buy whatever they push out, at any price, and no matter the quality. The PS5 Pro could genuinely be a start to an over-exaggerated reality where gaming is harder to access because we gave in to high-price demands. Before you go and pre-order your PS5 Pro, just think about what the message you're sending to Sony, to PlayStation, to their competitors, and maybe think to yourself if extra blades of grass is really worth it.